I'm here today with Steli from Close.io. He's the founder and CEO of Close.io, and today we're going to talk about the art of the follow-up. Steli, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, a little bit is always tough when you ask me to tell people about myself. But relevant in this context, I think I've been a serial entrepreneur my whole life. Um, Originally from Greece, grew up in Germany, and then moved to Silicon Valley 10 years ago. And for the context of this conversation, the last business that I was running was in kind of a consulting and outsourcing service. So we were running a company called Elastic Sales, and we helped other startups
Hmm.
build sales teams and come up with sales models and scale those. And we did that for over 200 venture-backed startups in the Valley alone. And in that process, we built an internal product called Close.io and inside Sales CRM that got so successful that we launched it. It grew pretty fast, and today that's all we do.
Hmm.
But it gave us a lot of insight on both doing, consulting work, freelancing work, kind of outsourcing work for people, and running kind of a services business at scale, and then also turning that into a product that now thousands of companies around the world are using to do sales of one type or another.
Hmm. Excellent. Oh, thank you so much. It's exciting to hear the backstory of how you got here. So, within the context of this conversation, I'm really interested in talking with you about follow-up and the importance of follow-up. So, kicking it off, why is follow-up an important thing to be doing? When we email somebody, if they don't respond back or we don't think they've opened our email, doesn't that mean we should just leave them alone?
No. So I'm very excited that we talk about follow-up. Follow-up is the highest piece of ROI advice that I ever give, just measured by the amount of emails I get today of people giving me not just this was an inspiring talk or this workshop was great, but telling me we just closed a customer for $20,000 because we did this amount of follow-up. We just raised our next round of funding. We just got this press article, like very concrete, like measurable results by the advice that I give in terms of follow-up. So I love it. Follow-up is where fortunes are made, and the reason why I love it so much is that it's the one thing that I feel like nobody does right. So if you do it, it's so easy to distinguish yourself and to generate results that others can't.
Hmm.
And here's my very simple philosophy, and I know that we're going to dive into more details to make this very kind of step by step for people. But my very basic philosophy is that most people, the reason why we don't like to follow up when somebody's silent or doesn't respond to our message is that we assume silence equals rejection,
Hmm.
right? We assume that this person is giving us the silent treatment, and that means we're not worthy a response, they don't like us, they are annoyed by us. And what we do is we take that rejection quite personal, and we decide that we don't want to keep going back to that well of rejection and get more of it. And we're afraid of being annoying, we're afraid of being needy, we're afraid of socially creating an awkward status. So hence, usually people will send an email. Some people might send one follow-up, and then we're just gonna let it go.
Hmm.
I think that's criminal, and I think that's really stupid. But I totally understand why we feel that way because it's an emotional thing. But honestly, my assumption is when somebody goes quiet on me, my assumption is a totally different one. My assumption is not their silence is rejection. My assumption is their silence means they're busy. They probably have a life
Hmm.
that doesn't evolve around my service or whatever I try to offer them. And they just got busy. Something else came up. Maybe they got sick. Maybe they had problems in their personal life. Maybe the company is going through a crisis. There's a million reasons why somebody goes quiet. There's really a million reasons. And I'm not in the mind reading business. I'm in the, getting shit done business, trying to offer value. And if we had a positive conversation, you showed interest, and I followed up with the next step, and you go quiet, I see it as my responsibility to keep reaching out, manage this relationship, and until you had a chance to catch up with whatever you were doing, and you can give me a response,
Hmm.
one way or another. So I will follow up with you forever, indefinitely. until I get a response. Yes is good, no is good, anything is good, but I won't accept nothing, especially if we had a good conversation, especially if there was interest there.
So, how does that differ if we're doing sort of a cold outreach campaign? We haven't heard back from that person yet. Where do we want to put that limit on persistence?
Yeah, so I see that as a different scenario. So there, if I reach out to you cold and you don't respond to me, I will follow up. I typically would do probably between 3 to 6 follow-ups, depending on what I'm trying to accomplish and the context of the situation. I've heard from some people that scientifically research has shown 8 is the right number on cold outreach. I don't know, place it somewhere between 6 and 8, but I would follow up a number of times. I think if you send out a cold email and you don't have a follow-up email already in place, you're wasting your time. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't send you, like, one of the famous examples that I give people is that I follow up with an investor once 48 times. I wouldn't follow up with anybody 48 times if I didn't have permission for it or if we didn't have any kind of connection before. So 6 to 8 when it's cold, indefinite when it's warm.
Since we're really going for commitment either way, saying like, yeah, I want to work together, or hey, you know what, our side of the table changed, we can't do this deal anymore, we need to head into a different direction, but resolving that ambiguity.
Yes, I think that ambiguity is where companies, careers, where things go to die. Mm-hmm. I think both yes and no is good because it's a clear outcome. Mm-hmm. If you generate enough clear outcomes, you have real information to make changes, right? If you get a lot of yes, that's awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. If you get a lot of no's, that's also a pretty strong signal. Most people will not ignore that. Most people will go, holy moly, I asked 100 people. 100 people told me no. Mm-hmm. Maybe I need to change something. But it's in that maybe land that companies go to die and things go to die. It's in that I'm not sure why some of this isn't working. When people don't respond, I don't know, is it my subject line? Is it that I'm in spam folders? Is it that they're busy? Or is it that they don't like what I do? I don't know. And if you don't know, you can't change anything. You can't improve anything. So I think that the number one responsibility you have is not necessarily to have success and make everybody respond positively, but it's your responsibility to generate clear outcomes, real results, mm-hmm. so that you can take those results and learn, improve, pivot, adjust, and ultimately, hopefully, get to where you want to go.
That makes a ton of sense. And in that light, 100 no's is almost as valuable as 100 yeses, because 100 no's lets us know, okay, they're receiving it, they're opening it, they're engaging, they're telling us no, we could hone in on what we need to change and improve our performance.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So I'm just taking a quick look at my notes here. So what elements go into an effective follow-up email? I've sent the first email and now I want to follow up.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the basics and then we can do some black belt stuff.
I like it.
But on the basic level, I think it requires very little. You don't need to be crazy creative. You don't need to do super ninja stuff. The 48 follow-up email example where this billionaire investor ended up responding and we got money from him. In that example, it was 48 emails that read the exact same way. And I'll break down why that was, like the elements why that worked. So the emails were basically all to the tune of, hey, another beautiful day in paradise. Can we do this Tuesday or Thursday? The next email would read, hey, a little bit of news. We just got this new feature launched. Can we do this Friday? I'm still excited to meet. The next email would be, hey, another beautiful day in paradise. What will be a good day or time in the next 14 days? I'm totally up to whatever works for you best. That was kind of it. Mm-hmm. It was like there was zero creativity on my part. The elements of an effective follow-up is you keep it short and sweet, so it doesn't take a lot of time for me to consume. You keep it upbeat, kind of like light. So, a lot of times, and we might dig into this deeper later, but people who are not responding, they feel guilt. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Some a little, some a lot, but we've all been on the receiving end of this, where we've gotten this email from somebody, we know we should respond, but other things are more important and we're just not getting to it. And then when you get a follow-up, you kind of feel like, I should have already responded to this thing. So it's your job in an effective follow-up to make me feel okay about this. And the way you make me feel okay about this is by demonstrating to me that you're totally cool, like that you're not affected by me not having responded yet. You're upbeat, you're positive, you're short, you're like, you have this kind of like, let's make it happen, I'm still excited, that kind of an energy, which makes me comfortable to respond at some point. So you want to keep it short and sweet, you want to keep it upbeat and positive. Don't reference back to, you know, how many follow-ups you've already sent me. Don't make me feel guilty. And if you do that, if you're kind of persistent and consistent in your messaging, you're gonna be fine. Now we can talk about some more cool stuff that people can do, but I think that short, simple, positive, upbeat is all it takes, and then persistency, right? Not giving up, to be very, very dangerous with follow-up.
So simply starting with a framework of, I'm going to follow up. If they've responded positively, I'm going to keep following up. I'm not going to make them feel negative or guilty about not having responded yet. Just keep that door open periodically. That's going to take people miles ahead of sending an email and then giving up.
Oh yeah. I mean, that alone, as I said, you know, showing up is something we all kind of understand we need to do, and showing up can be sending that first email, making that first phone call, going to that conference, shaking somebody's hand, giving somebody your business card. That first little step is something that we understand. Now we kind of have to do that to move things forward, but we totally underestimate the impact of taking that second, third, fourth, and fifth step when everybody else that's competing with us in the marketplace isn't, right? Everybody kind of takes that first step. Everybody sends that first cold email, but almost nobody really follows up and follows through. If you follow up and follow through, magic will happen. Like a lot of the times where you would get 0 results, you will start generating results. You generate more results than anybody else, you'll either close a lot more deals or get a lot more of what you want, or you get a lot more information, a lot stronger signals that something isn't working, and where somebody else is second guessing for months and months and months, you might make a decision, you know, a few weeks into it and go, this isn't working, let me adjust, let me change, until you get to something that really works for you. So it's so powerful, and all it takes is just that mental mind frame of, I'm not needy, I'm not annoying, they're not rejecting me. I got a response, and that said, yes, I want to be on your podcast, yes, I want to do this, and then when I don't hear back, I will just follow up until they get a chance, catch a break, and respond to me, and we'll make it happen. And people, I found that I don't know how to say this, the higher the status of the person that you're trying to interact with, the more they appreciate follow-up and follow-through. It really, like, the more they know how rare this is, the more they understand how much discipline it takes, and the more they go like, I've done this in my life, so I appreciate when I see somebody taking full responsibility for this happening without being annoyed, without being needy, without being angry or pissed at me because I didn't respond to their last 3 emails because I was traveling and I was busy and I had a life. People appreciate that level of professionalism. People appreciate you being on top of things and making sure that if I committed to something or I told you I'm interested, that you're there for me and you're going to keep being there until we can make it happen.
Perfect. Often when I speak with colleagues or clients, I tell them, when we send that email, that first email, we don't get a response and we feel that, like you pointed out, that negativity or that worry, it's weakness of ego on our part. What we need to do is be confident and strong and say like, hey, we're going to send a second, a third, a fourth email, and keep engaging with people. And it's exactly as you're describing. People will be so thankful, like, oh, thanks for sending, 5 follow-up emails. I was traveling. My kid was sick. I could see you're committed. There's so many opportunities people have emailed to me, and I'm busy, I'm sick, whatever. I don't respond, and I never hear from them again. And how could I know how interested they were in working together if they don't follow up? So it's a courtesy we do as the person sending the email.
Yeah. And you know what? This is crazy, but I'll just throw that out there. The amount of times that people get in touch with me when it's a very bad time and they want something from me, and I tell them, listen, right now is a very bad time. I'm overseas. The next 3 weeks is really busy. Can you email me in 4 weeks when I'm a little bit more clear in my mind, and then we'll find a time to talk? And I know when I say that 9 out of 10 people I will never hear back from.
Yep.
They reached out, and I'm not even letting them in the dark. I'm responding, telling them what to do next to get my time, get my attention, get what they wanted from me. And they go, yes, awesome. I'll send you an email in 5 weeks, never hear back from them. I know if I tell somebody that, 9 out of 10 times chance I never will hear back from them in my life. Mm-hmm. That breaks my heart. Like, mm-hmm. It does break my heart. It makes my life more manageable, but it does break my heart to a certain extent, because it's crazy in this case. And this is not even the people that don't hear from me, right? It takes a certain type of character and courage to take full responsibility and ownership for making sure relationships and things move forward, and not just go, well, I tried once, and if it doesn't immediately work out my way, then they can't possibly expect me to reach out again and think about that. Mm-hmm. Doing that will really separate you from the pack, and with that, separate the results you get from everybody else.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's perfect. So in terms of the black belt techniques you had alluded to earlier, what would you share there?
Yeah, so I mean, there are ways to make this a bit more fun, stand out, and see if you can stimulate or elicit responses from people. So one way is that a lot of people is to try to offer some kind of value. So instead of just sending email after email that's like, let's talk, they're like, well, how can I add something into this to make this email a bit more valuable to people? So I'm not a huge fan of this, to be honest, myself, in the sense that I'm not good at doing this, but a lot of people will share interesting articles or news, or they'll point to something. They'll try to give the person on the receiving end something of value. A lot of times it is content. That can be a big strategy. If you do content, and this can work really well, but if you do content, you need to put a little bit of work and effort into it to make sure that what you send is really good, right? And what you send is not something that is obvious that I probably already read, right? Whatever. If it was the top news on some big popular site like Hacker News or Reddit, or don't send me that link that everybody, don't send me the link that you've seen 100 times in your Facebook feed. Don't send me something I've already seen. Don't send me something where it's super vanilla, oh, Steli, you're in sales, so this article might be interesting for you. The 10 basic rules on how to do selling. No, that's not interesting to me, right? It diminishes you now, because I go, oh, this person clearly doesn't know who I am, or they clearly don't know what's up. Mm-hmm. So, but if you send me something that's super powerful, or that's like, hey, I was listening to your podcast. I know that you're really into martial arts now. Here's, my favorite book on this topic, or something that shows me that you know a thing or two about me, and that you sent me something unique. Now that might be very much appreciated, right? Somebody sent me a little book of the Tao Te Ching, kind of a pocketbook version of it, because they heard that I shared a quote somewhere, and I have that little pocketbook with me every day, right? So I highly appreciated that from that person. So you can send a book or an article or a little bit of content. That's one way to stand out. You do your homework there. It could be really highly appreciated. It could make a difference. Mm-hmm. Humor can be a great way. There's a bunch of things that I can share there. And I've written about this. Putting some funny in your follow-up. So there's little things that you could do. Like you could add a funny GIF. There's a GIF if you go to Google and you type in Cookie Monster waiting GIF. You'll find a GIF of the Cookie Monster, and it's just tapping and going just on the table, just waiting for a response. That could be, making people laugh can create a magical moment where they go, oh shit, all right, let me respond to this person. So having a little GIF of the Cookie Monster waiting, or any other funny GIF like that. I had a person once sending me an email, after the fourth follow-up going, quick, Steli, hit any random number of keys and hit reply so I know you're still fine. Right? And so that can work. And I've written a whole blog post on this with all kinds of tips on how to be funny, making somebody laugh, sharing kind of a human moment of you finding the humor in not hearing back from them. Mm-hmm. Can make a big difference. Can make people just emotionally respond to the message and go, okay, I need to respond to this. I had a person once create a video. And they emailed me a number of times, And then they created this video, and they're like, well, since you're not responding to written words, here's a video of mine. And I click on the video, and it's first just this dude, and he's like, well, Steli, I really want to make this happen, and blah, blah, blah. And he's just speaking. And I'm thinking, my inner dialogue while I'm watching this is, all right, okay, I mean, you made a video, but you're saying the same thing that you're saying in the email. And while I'm thinking that, there's like left and right, all of a sudden, there's two dudes showing up, one with a guitar, one with a harmonica, and they start a song. And it's like, oh, Steli, it's the follow-up song or something like that. And they're all singing, and now I start laughing. I'm like, all right, this is good, this is good. And now, my entrepreneurial marketing sales brain is going on. I'm like, there's no way they recorded this video just for me. The song is pretty generic. It was like the follow-up song or something. And I'm like, oh, that's so brilliant. They created this song, and then every time he does follow up with somebody, he just creates the first part of the video where he's like, hey, John, hey, Bob, right? And literally, as I'm thinking that, they're in the song, they're like, and Steli and close out. And I'm like, oh, shit, they just created, at least they just recorded this for me. Oh, fine, all right. And I'm like, all right, I'll respond to this. This is great.
Sure.
So, I mean, you can go out of your way to do something special. And obviously, that's going to stand out in a way that a message from me that might be just 10 times the same thing won't. So this is kind of even above that in kind of competing for people's attention and stimulating response. So that's some of the stuff you're creating value, sharing a book, some piece of content, some piece of information that you have that they might be interested in can be really powerful, but make sure that it's good. Or putting a little bit of humor, that might be much easier. Find a funny give. Type in something that's like a little bit of self-aware. I think HubSpot does this. They 7th email or so follow-up that they do. If you don't respond while you're on a trial with them, send a message, and it's too long. You could make this much shorter and tighter and better in my mind. That's basically the message is like, hey, I followed up with you a few times. I haven't heard from you, so here's 3 assumptions that I have based on this. Number 1, you're not interested in this anymore. I should stop bothering you. Number 2, you've fallen off the stairs and you're like, you can't get to anything, and I should call the ambulance, the police, or number 3, something else, right? And and this has been very successful with somebody else as well, this like number system. I have these assumptions. It could be number 1, 2, 3, or 4. Please just respond with a number.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Right? Just tell me the number. And I'll know the rest of the story myself. So that can be really powerful. And then a last thing, but not least, and this goes against everything I've said so far, so that's why I love it, because advice that's too black and white and there's no exception to the rules is typically a bad advice in my mind. There is a hack to all of this, which is the breakup email, right? And the breakup email is basically a very effective email that you can send where you're telling them you're not going to send them any more email. And basically, a good subject line for this could be goodbye from Steli, for instance. So if I follow up with you, the subject I would read goodbye from Steli. And then you open that email and I go, listen, I tried 48 times to get you on the podcast. I assume you're really, really busy, but it seems like so busy that the next 48 might not make a difference. So I'm taking you off my list of guests. This is the last time you hear from me. If you want to respond at any time in the future, I'm always game. I'm always excited. Here's all my contact information. Let's make it happen. But I'm taking you off my list. You're not going to hear from me again. And that can be very powerful because you're taking it away from people. And it's typically that time where people go, no, I wanted to do this. I just didn't have the time. So it can be a very effective, very powerful email. Some people tell me, have asked me in the past, would you send another email after you send that? And I thought about that. My first inclination is like, no, because I want to stay true to my word. But then I thought, well, heck, I mean, if you do it right, you could send an email afterwards and go, all right, you got me. I was bluffing, right? I was just joking. I really feel like we need to make this happen. I am breaking my own word here. I just can't. I was bluffing. You caught me. Let's make this happen, right? But after that, I wouldn't know what to write else, right? So these are the breakup email, the breaking down scenarios. Here's like 4 things that could be the case. Which one of this is it? Just give me a number. humor or sharing some content, books, things that could be interesting for them. Those are all, I think, techniques that are very high level.
Perfect.
I don't think you need them necessarily to really get your game to the next level. But if you feel like it, if you're like already great at follow up and you're like, what else can I do? Those are some ideas.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. How are you on time? I'd love to ask you one more question, but I don't want to keep you too long.
Let's do it. One more question is definitely in the books.
Perfect. Perfect. So, is there anything, or how about this one? When it comes to outreach to someone who's above your weight class, you've reached out to them. They've said like, you're not a good fit. Or we can't work together. How do you follow up to stay in contact with them so in 6 or 12 months you could try to rekindle that relationship and go after it again?
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
I think that. I mean, I can imagine multiple scenarios to this, but I don't know which one will really work best in the sense that when somebody is above your weight class, the question is, are you self-aware enough to know that? And the question is, will they be honest enough to tell you and to tell you why? So if you're self-aware to know that, that's awesome. Then I would encourage you to ask them to tell you what exactly would make a difference. So you can respond and go, I totally get, I'm not at your weight class. You wouldn't say that those terms you say, but I'm not, I can't bring enough to the table at this point. I totally get that. Can you do me a favor and just let me know, so I don't follow up with you every 6 months mindlessly. What do I need to, where would I have to be so that it makes sense for you to work with me? Like, that can be a powerful question. I feel like a few people might respond honestly with that, and that can be all you need to really know. Many people will avoid that because it means confrontation. It's work for them. They now need to tell you what they don't like about you. It's there's a lot of risk for them involved in that. But that's one approach, like knowing that and then trying to understand where do I need to be can make a big difference. On top of that, I would just, with that, I would just try to check in with them regularly. And give them a quick update on what has changed. So let's say even if they don't tell you, send them an email every 6 months and go, hey, it's been half a year. I see lots of awesome things are going on. Here's in bullet point, just format this really well. In bullet point, 3 or 4 things that have changed for us, just to give you all the information you need to know if this is an interesting time. Let me know if we should talk. We now are not, 10 people, we're 100. We're now not doing this amount of revenue. We're doing that. Our audience has now grown from this to this. We've now had this amount of people as guests, just giving you a little update on where we are and seeing if now is a good time. That alone can be really powerful. Even if you don't know if that's enough, you can just keep them updated with your projection and your progress. And a lot of times, honestly, like that journey, like keeping me in the loop on your journey can make a significant difference. There's people that have asked me for help and I couldn't help them at the time. I've never heard back from them. There's people that asked me for help and they kept me up to date with their journey. And even if they didn't, or many of times they didn't succeed in that journey in the sense that they didn't accomplish what they really wanted to. They didn't really get to where they wanted to. But then the next time around when they ask me for help, I'm much more willing to help because I now know this is somebody that followed through with this thing. This is somebody that kept me up to date. This is somebody that if I spend time with, I feel good about knowing what's going to come out of it. And I feel like this person has learned a lot and maybe now is the time that they're going to put this into practice and really make something happen versus this other person where I never heard back from them. And I kind of don't know the 30 minutes I spent with them giving them advice. Did that do something? Did that not do something? You can build an amazing relationship with a mentor or somebody at a very, much further ahead in life than you, but just keeping them up to date, even without them responding, because you're making them part of your story, and now they're invested in you a little bit. And now when you want something 2 or 3 years down the line, they feel like they've known you for years, they've known all your highs and lows, and they're gonna feel differently about you, I guarantee it. So just keep them up to date with your progress, keep them up to date with where your business is. And then, and don't worry about weight classes. What was it? Like 6 years ago, I cold emailed Mark Cuban to get an investment from him for one of my companies. And he responded within like an hour with a bunch of questions. And we had like over a span of 10 days, we had like, 24 emails back and forth. He ended up passing on the opportunity, but it taught me a valuable lesson because the reason why I sent him an email was I was with my co-founder, we were chatting, and I don't know, we'd read something something on his blog, and we're like, oh, this would be perfect for him. And my co-founder was like, I wish we could like pitch him on this. And I thought, well, we could just send him an email. And I said it, and I didn't really mean it, honestly. I was like, oh, we could just send him an email. And my co-founder was like, really? Oh, that's incredible. Are you going to do this? And that response put me on the spot. I was like, yeah, of course I'm doing this. I'm doing this right now. And like, literally, I would have never sent him the email. It was just like me thinking out loud. And after that exchange, I was like, fuck, you could just send emails. I should send emails to a lot more people without worrying if they're going to respond or not. And a lot of these people do respond. Yeah, email exchanges with a lot of people that are very famous, way ahead my weight class, and they didn't know me. But I sent them a thoughtful email. I asked a good question. I was short. I was brief. And I got them at the right time. I had sent emails of people that didn't respond to me. I sent emails to people like Gary Vaynerchuk, who I wanted to get as an investor on one of my crazy ideas many years ago. And I sent him multiple emails, and I created a specific landing page with all these crazy. I put so much effort into this because I knew him so much, and I was a big fan. Never heard back from him, and then years later I did something else, and never heard back from him, and then years later, an investor of mine was friends with him, so I got a connection to interview him for our blog, and we got a response, yes, he's interested, and then it took 7 months and all these follow-up emails, and then eventually we did an interview together. And the beginning of the interview, if you watch that video, if you just type in Gary Vaynerchuk and Steli Efti in YouTube, it's one of our most popular videos. And at the beginning of the video, you could just tell he was like, why do I have to do this interview right now? I'm exhausted. I'm in this hotel. I really don't want to talk to this guy. And then 5 minutes into it, you could tell like he's coming alive and is loving it. And his wife said, best interview he'd done in years. And we built a little relationship of that. And it took many, many years, many follow-ups, many attempts until I got there. So this is just to end this section on a hopefully inspirational note, or especially also within the context of reaching out to somebody to get an interview with them, that sometimes it takes many years, but don't worry about weight classes. If you're self-aware of where you are and where they are, and if you're persistent and consistent, if you're trying to add value and you move and progress forward in your life, you're going to be friends with lots of amazing people that you find hard to believe today in just a short period of time.
That's perfect. And it really, really underscores, I think, the idea that the worst thing that happens if you send an email is they don't respond. Nobody's going to hunt you down. Nothing bad's going to happen. There's no cost of sending an email. Take whatever marginal risk that is and send the email, try to build that relationship and see what happens with it.
Yeah. I mean, you said if you don't send the email, they will not respond 100% of the times, right? So I think Patrick McKenzie once tweeted that emails that don't get sent close no deals, right? So I mean, the worst result is already happening. You're not getting an email response from this person if you're not emailing them. So by emailing them, the worst that can happen is that what happens is exactly what happened a moment before you sent the email, which is you didn't get a reply from them. But you are now putting something out in the universe, and you're now putting yourself in a position to get a response and build a relationship and make it happen. If you only do that, if you just reach out to people, don't worry about their weight class and their status, and you are persistent and consistent, you're going to accomplish a lot of incredible things.
That's perfect. And I think that's an excellent spot to end. Thank you so much for taking the time for this. If people want to learn a little more about you, where can they find you online?
Yeah, so most of my content is out there. I put a lot of content out there, 2 to 3 videos and blog posts a week. If you go to blog.close.io, you can subscribe to that. You can find me on Twitter at Steli, S-T-E-L-I. And if you have a follow-up question to this, if you take this advice into practice and you generate results, I want to hear from you. You can get in touch with me directly at Steli, S-T-E-L-I, at close.io. I'm writing a book on the follow-up just because we have hundreds of case studies of people that emailed me with the results they got through following up and following through. If you're one of these people that are going to generate results and really put this in practice that we've talked about, I want to hear your story. I want to hear the results that you've shared, and they might make it into the book.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, again, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I'm sure the audience is going to love this.
Awesome.